bring in our chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons. Rob, for the first time, Donald Trump is saying there will be an orderly transition of power, but he's still claiming this election was stolen.
He will always claim, I think, to his dying day that this election was stolen, Delano. But he does, I think, at last understand that the road has pretty much run out for him. With this vote from the Electoral College being recognized by both houses of Congress, there really isn't anywhere else for him to go. He's seen what happens now when you make these sort of appeals to his base support, how easily things can get out of hand. And I think now, particularly after he's had the opportunity to speak to some of his more senior supporters, that he understands the enormity of what it is that he's unleashed. There is a real danger, I think, for him here that he could end up facing a second impeachment. And a second impeachment would mean that he could not stand again as President of the United States. And it could go even worse than that. There are some people talking about invoking the 25th Amendment, including people in the U.S. cabinet, by all accounts. This would need the support of Mike Pence, the vice president. And although that seems unlikely at the moment that they would do that, in other words, recognizing that President Trump as being unfit to carry on his job for health reasons or other reasons, although it's unlikely to happen, the very fact that this is being raised at all at this stage is deeply humiliating for Donald Trump. So I think now he begins to understand what he's got himself into. That is why he's saying there will be an orderly transition of power on the 20th of January. He realizes now that he's gone too far, I think, but there's nothing more he can do about it. The ball really is completely out of his court. It's for Joe Biden to play with now. Donald Trump is on his way out.
He's on his way out. He's not going gracefully, as we've been saying. How unprecedented is it, Rob, that we have such scenes of violence, really, American carnage, if you will, to use Donald Trump's own words, unfold at the U.S. Capitol, so much so that you have Democratic leaders from around the world, including countries like France, India, the United Kingdom, Germany, denouncing the violence and calling for a peaceful transition of power?
Well, people have been saying there's been nothing like this in recent memory or in living memory. There's been nothing like this for a couple of hundred years in the United States. There's the Civil War, but the Civil War didn't actually get into the Capitol. This has been happening in the Capitol, right in the core of U.S. democracy. There could be nothing more symbolic than that. U.S. democracy, for a few hours, was deeply under threat. That is why we're seeing the response that we are from prime ministers and presidents around the world, particularly democracies, particularly, it has to be said, from allies of the United States, who are deeply dismayed at the direction in which the United States has been going under Donald Trump, and even more dismayed by what they've been seeing over the last few hours. President Macron of France, speaking in English, expressed his dismay, but his faith in U.S. democracy. This isn't America, he said. Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the United Kingdom also expressing his horror about the violence. The head of NATO, the President of the European Union, and from further afield from India. But of course, others have been taking pleasure in seeing what's been going on. The Russians, very happy to see it happening. The Chinese, comparing the response, for instance, of Nancy Pelosi to the demonstrations in Hong Kong and mocking her, saying, let's see how you react to these demonstrations now. In Venezuela, too, celebrating this banana skin in the United States. So all around the world, people are looking at this and reacting. But ordinary people, too, it must be remembered, particularly in those countries which don't have democracies and where they would like to see democracy established. They are horrified by what they're seeing.
It's indeed horrific and truly shocking. I never thought that in my lifetime I would see something like that. Rob, thank you very much for that. Rob Parsons reporting that.